Good afternoon and welcome to this press conference about the outcome of the UK's referendum on the EU membership. I have on my side the Chair of Parliament's Constitutional Affairs Committee, Ms. Danuta Hübner, and Ms. Hübner, you're welcome to talk. And
I don't understand it. You already asked me. And there's also Joseph Pacheco, who is head of the Secretariat of AFCO. And I'm here because it is within the European Parliament, it is the Committee on Constitutional Affairs that has under its competences also the institutional consequences of what we call withdrawal of a member state from the European Union. And I would like to maybe start by, actually I don't want to talk about the results of the referendum, but everything around the referendum, because results, there's nothing to talk about. The results we all know. But what I would like to share with you is that we are living a very difficult period of uncertainty, and uncertainty is never good. I think for the economy, legal uncertainty is not good. We are also impatient here on the continent. We see a lot of attitudes which is wait and see. So after all those months, not to say years, of preparing for the results of the British referendum, we are seeing here 5 days later, we are sitting here and waiting to see what will happen next. Of course, it's not an apocalypse. We should not dramatize the situation, but it is not a painless situation when it comes to the UK, but also when it comes to the European Union and the citizens of the European Union, others than the British citizens. And that's why we are worrying in the Parliament. We are worrying also because we are now in the period where we are making long-term planning for many European actions. We are about to decide on the mid-term review of multi-annual financial framework. We are talking about the EU budget after 2020. We are also supposed to produce by the end of this year the new legal framework for the distribution of seats in the European Parliament in the context of next elections to European Parliament. So these are the minor issues that we are discussing here, which require from us long-term planning and long-term thinking. And this uncertainty is also having impact on those decisions directly related to the fact how many states we have in the European Union. So we are in favour, in the Parliament, we are in favour of swift implementation of the withdrawal process, which probably does not come as a surprise. And we see also the lack of consequence in what we have heard from Prime Minister Cameron some time ago, when he made a very clear commitment to come with the notification of the decision on the basis of the referendum straight away after the referendum. And for us, straight away means straight away. And now we hear something different. Now we hear that it might be the new leader, the new government. So basically, it's all sent ad calendas graecas, and this is something which is not good, I think, for European Union, for the situation of all of us. But I also can say that for me, this sort of lack of implementation of commitment made is also going against what we have as a major principle for our functioning in the European Union, which is the principle of sincere cooperation. Member States are obliged by the treaty to provide this willingness to cooperate sincerely, and also they are asked by the Article 4.3 of the European Union Treaty to assist other member states in case there is the implementation of the commitment flowing from a treaty, and commitment to invoke Article 50 comes from the treaty. So we also see that there is not only a moral obligation but also a legal obligation for the UK to clarify the situation rather promptly. The role of the European Parliament in whatever negotiations will take place is also quite clear. We are not the major player, that's absolutely clear, but we are at the end of the process obliged to provide what we call consent. So we have to approve what is going to be negotiated. And as you probably know, if finally we have the negotiation of withdrawal agreement, there will be two types of agreements that will have to be negotiated. First, with UK as member state of the European Union, the withdrawal, Article 50 and the withdrawal agreement. And here the Parliament will have, by a majority of votes, will have to provide the consent. And we cannot do it unless we are well informed, and you cannot be informed unless you are linked to the process. So we will be exercising, I think, this right of information from the Council and from the Commission with regard to the whole process of negotiating with a view to be able to make a conscious decision at the end of the process. But then the situation with the second agreement, once the UK leaves the European Union, becomes a third country, only then you can negotiate what is called agreement on relationship, on future relationship with the European Union, like we are negotiating TTIP with US, like we negotiated CETA with Canada. So we will also have to negotiate the framework for the future relationship. And in this negotiation and agreement with third country, if and once the UK becomes a third country, then the Parliament is strongly involved. There is Article 218 of the treaty which makes this involvement treaty based. So EP role in both cases is through consent, but with the second agreement this is deeper in terms of the participation of the Parliament. It is of course difficult to say today what finally will happen. That's our problem, or one of the problems. But of course I feel obliged to say that if finally we have the exit from the Union for the first time in our history, it comes as natural for the European Parliament to take care or be particularly sensitive to the question of protecting citizens, the protection of the more or less 2 million citizens of the European Union in the UK, but also to protect the UK citizens in Brussels, especially when it comes to the officials. As you know, we have many British citizens working in European institutions, and this will be one of those issues where we will have to be especially sensitive. But we also think already today what will happen with our official languages. You probably know that English is one of the official languages because it has been notified by UK as an official language. It's also a working language, and it's actually dominating language. And we have a regulation, but now it's of course article in the Treaty 342, but it's based on the regulation number 1 from 1958, which would have to be changed by unanimity, where every country has the right to notify one official language. And the Irish have notified Gaelic, which is Irish, and the Maltese have notified Maltese. So you have only UK notifying the English. If we don't have UK, we don't have English. So that's just not showing that there are also funny issues that's on the agenda, but there are those problems. So the withdrawal agreement will be an agreement on identifying on establishing what it really means that somebody ceases to be the member. So we will have to identify during those negotiations all the provisions that cease to be valid, that will cease to exist in the European legal framework. So that would be also a long-lasting negotiation and a difficult, probably also, agreement. Then what I would like also to tell you that the February deal, which was a very emotional one, and we had a lot of discussions, this deal is already dead. So this deal will not come back as it was negotiated and agreed as a deal between the EU 27 and UK, because this deal was clearly linked to the positive results of the referendum. So once the situation did not appear, did not emerge, this deal is gone. So it is something to remember. So today and tomorrow, by the end of negotiation or withdrawal agreement, UK will be a member of the European Union on the basis of the current treaties, not on the basis of the February deal. This is also important to remember. And then, of course, if the UK stays, it is difficult to judge today how open the EU will be to further sweetheart deals, or how how committed EU will be to have UK as a fully fledged member without having more opt-outs or more opt-ins or more whatever you might need. I think we have accommodated during our history. We have accommodated requests coming from the UK governments with huge openness, and it will be up to all of us to see the openness of politicians of member states to continue this kind of approach if UK stays with us. Then there are very often questions: what will happen? Because we've heard that Jonathan Hill has. I don't know even how to call it. He's not the commissioner anymore, and there are questions about the parliamentarians coming from UK and the European Parliament. I would just like to tell you that even though there are many colleagues who would probably like to see everybody goes from the European Parliament, as of now, this is absolutely impossible. We have very clearly the rules, the treaty, the Article 50 doesn't say anything about the European Parliament in this context. It's only for the Council and for the European Council that representatives of government of UK cannot participate in discussions of their issue and in the vote, but in the European Parliament we don't have any such rules, so there's no legal basis to do anything to exclude anybody. And additionally, you might remember that the treaty says that members of European Parliament are not representing citizens from their small constituency. We are representing the European Union citizens. So also the British parliamentarians are representing European citizens, not only the British citizens. So we have no legal possibility to have it differently, no matter what will be the result of whether we have notification or whether we have treaty or not. The situation continues as long as the UK is a member of the European Union. Of course, political, like in case of Jonathan Hill, political decisions or political sensitivity can be also can happen, and colleagues can resign, but we have not heard yet anything in this context. Now, I also personally hope that this is a wake-up call for Americans, for Mr. Trump, that Americans can see that you can have situations that then are cannot be sort of absorbed by the society. So I hope that this will also be the case. But what I would like to underline is that this referendum is also clearly, now we see the reactions, is also a perfect example of how people can be misled and what are the consequences of referenda on issues where you cannot, on issues too difficult, where you cannot really get through to everybody with full information on the consequences. And we clearly see that referenda can generate also dramatic outcomes, dramatic results. And the last issue I would like to raise is for us on the continent to use this opportunity also to make it very clear what, with regard to clarify the situation with regard to the reforms the European Union needs. I think not all of us have been reading the recent crisis as a legitimacy for deep reforms and far-reaching reforms. Most of the politicians were actually consider sort of looking at this situation as exactly the opposite. So people are not loving Europe because of the crisis, so we should stop breathing and Europe should not do anything. I think it's the opposite. So I hope that we will take this opportunity and the depths of the crisis, including the one generated by the UK, that we will see it as a strong legitimacy to start deep reforms. Which way they will go, I think it's already clear today that we have to strengthen the Eurozone, and we cannot just pretend that we are all willing to move with the same speed, to share the policies with the same speed. So we will most likely see in the time to come, we will see the reforms which will be deepening the integration within the Eurozone, while of course at the same time trying not to be disruptive for the single market. But I'm sure that we need a legal framework for those who want to share the same policies at higher speed than others. And I think if we don't have a legal framework for those countries, then we will have Europe à la carte, which is a simple way to further disintegration, and if we disintegrate, we will disintegrate into 28 irrelevant states of the world. So I think we need most likely the change of the treaty. We need new approach to our thinking about how to strengthen Europe. And we might still live for some time with this formula for Europe 27+1. We will see how this will evolve, but it's difficult. I don't know more than you probably on this, which way it will go. So thank you.
Thank you. We have time for some questions. First you, then you. Can you please tell us your name and who you're working for before you ask your question?
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Stairs, and I'm a freelance journalist based here in Brussels. From my accent, you can probably hear the country that I'm from. I had just two questions, if I may. One regarding the British MEP rapporteurs. What do you think can they carry on as rapporteurs, given that they will be overseeing legislation which will come into effect after the UK leaves? And secondly, on your comments on language, are you seriously suggesting that this place, the EU institutions, will no longer speak English after the UK leaves? I mean, even you yourself have come here today and you're speaking English this afternoon. Surely, in addition to being an official language, it is a lingua franca. Do you think that will change? Thank you.
You know, we have official and then we have working languages, so these are two categories. I personally believe that we will find unanimity to change the rule on this, that a member state can have only one official language notified, and then we will have from the Irish not only Gaelic but also English, or from the Maltese not only Maltese but also English. But maybe we will find another way. But I personally don't believe in it. So I'm just saying that there are all those small things which will start popping up once we put ourselves into the situation. On the members of the European Parliament who are rapporteurs, I think there is no legal basis to ask them to give up on this. It will be absolutely up to them how they will feel. Many of them, as you know, were also in favour of leaving the EU. So I don't know how they feel today after this victory of theirs. And it will be up to them to decide. So I think that Jonathan Hill has sort of showed certain paths to address this issue, but not everybody, I think, will. But we will not be, I don't believe that anybody in the Parliament can find a legal basis to do it.
Yes, Nikolai Nielsen, E-Observer. I had two questions as well. Will departing British MEPs retain things like pension rights and stuff like that? And also, I mean, there are 73 British MEPs. Once 73, and that will obviously change the political makeup of the parties. So would it be feasible to assume that groups like the Europe of Freedom and Direct Democracy and the ECR will dissolve?
Well, we are not yet there. We are not assuming that the situation which will emerge after the negotiation of the agreement, so I cannot speak on behalf of already existing legal analysis. And what I can certainly say on the basis of my experience, I cannot imagine that anything can work retroactively. So all the pension rights which have been acquired so far will stay. However, of course, if the person leaves, then it's a different story. Like we have also with officials that are when you apply for a job as official in EU, the first precondition that appears there is that you have to be a citizen of a member state of the European Union. But of course we also know that there are possibilities of derogations, there are possibilities of including a lot of conditions that would allow then the authorities to decide that people stay or they don't lose their jobs. I think we are in the mood of protecting the citizens, not in the mood of getting rid of UK citizens. So I think that this I think the Parliament will be seriously in this mood. Now, you know, there are the rules for the group to exist as a group. So you need 7 nationalities and 20-something. I forgot 20-something members, right, to have a group. So that will depend on this definitely. But we have a big representation of the British in 2 political groups, actually, in ECR, but also in the left, in the Socialist and Democrat group. We have also more than 20, I think. So we will see, but the groups have to be. You might have reshuffling, so it's impossible to say. But the rules are very clear: number of member states and number of deputies.
Hello, my name's Brett Mason. I'm from SBS Australia, and the fact that I'm here will probably give you an indication of how closely the world is watching what's taking place here. If you'll excuse the observation, outside looking in, it does look like a bit of a train wreck. How surprised have you been that the UK didn't have any advanced plan for the event of a Brexit? And how concerned are you that the longer this process goes on and on without a plan, the European project as a whole is becoming more and more damaged?
Well, I think, well, thank you for being here with us. We are, of course, fully aware. Maybe some people are surprised that actually the immediate consequences in terms of financial markets and exchange rates and others were global, actually. So that shows that for the first time we see how important Europe is, actually, if I may say a little bit cynically. But we know about the consequences. I think in UK, if I was listening carefully throughout the campaign also and had a lot of also exchanges with the Brexiteers, with those who wanted UK to leave, and they never cared about the day after in the sense of concrete results of leaving or staying. They were just always with a strong political message: it will be simply better, we will be better, nobody will be deciding for us. And they never offered any alternative, and all the efforts to prove that something can be better than a single market, I think, didn't lead to any such new model for UK. But I think the fact that they didn't care about presenting anything concrete as an alternative clearly proves, because all the alternatives like Norway, Switzerland, they are not better. Not if you think of Norwegian, because one can say Norwegian solution works so many years and they work. But the Norwegian solution in case of UK would mean the contribution to the EU budget probably very close to what UK is paying to EU budget, having all the rebates today. So to participate, to benefit from single market on the basis of Norwegian agreement would not mean really more benefits. It would mean more costs for the same, without having any impact on the decisions. So it was just an Zwischenruf and a marginal comment. But I think nobody maybe nobody is too much to say, but I think in general the campaigners for Brexit did not expect that they will win. Their hope was to lose marginally, so like to have 50.1 or 0.2 in favour of staying, and this would give them the same platform that they had so far, but now strengthened by the decision of divided British citizens, that would allow them to continue the fight against the European Union, to continue the fight for repatriation, to continue what they have been doing for years now. So I think they didn't have any plan B, and that's why they are shocked, surprised, and they are now trying to delay the whole thing. And in the meantime, maybe Boris Johnson would come to Brussels to try to strike something that you might remember Bill Cash saying, they are so desperate in Europe to keep us that they will give us a much better deal than we have so far. So it's very frustrating, but that was, I think, the situation, and that's why they were not prepared, and because they did not expect this type of solution. So, but I think it's bad. I said it's bad for all of us. That's why we think, because uncertainty when it comes to economy, when it comes to politics, uncertainty is always bad. And when I listened this morning to a Chinese leader saying that China will keep now the investment in UK on hold, that means, that sounds innocently, but that means a lot probably also to Citi, and not only to Citi, because they are probably more real investors than financial investors, but that has investment, no growth, so no employment, no other things. So it's very bad, I think, the consequence. So I guess the sooner that's why we want to finalize the whole process as quickly as possible, whichever way to go, but we cannot live in this uncertainty. Because the uncertainty maybe will just calm down a little bit, but already at a worse level. So yes, that's one of the major reasons for us to rush for the deal. It's nothing more but just to end up with uncertainty, because we have also other things to do. It's not only the bad consequences on markets, on economy, but also we cannot spend more time on dealing with those issues to which we devoted a lot of energy in this House, in the Council, in the Commission over the last months or years, since the famous speech in 2013, it was in January, by Mr. Cameron, that we would like to focus on the reforms and not on this deal. Thank you.
Catherine Fiore, EU reporter. The commissioner, the current British commissioner, has resigned. The UK could, of course, appoint another commissioner, and I'm just wondering, as a Parliament, I don't know why this sound is going on and off, but as the Parliament will have to approve that appointment through a hearing. What sort of portfolio would be acceptable for a British commissioner? Will it become a commissioner without portfolio? What will the Parliament's position be on this, do you think, if another person is proposed? And secondly, the Polish embassy in the UK has issued a statement to respond to the upsurge in xenophobic abuse and attacks against the Polish community in London and beyond. Do you have anything to say to the British authorities or to the Polish community living in the UK about these particular attacks?
Yeah, my colleague is saying that Portuguese were also attacked, not only Poles. But on Commissioner Jonathan Hill, I think we valued very highly his work over the last 2 years, because he also brought a certain freshness and approach on how to cope with difficult issues of capital and markets. So I think I can speak on behalf of many colleagues that we will miss him. But I also understand that the government has made it clear that they are not going to appoint a new British commissioner. I don't know for how long this statement will stay as valuable, but we will see. But I think immediately the Commission, the Commission has this structure that commissioners are under vice presidents, and there is a vice president, Mr. Dombrovskis, who is actually covering the area for which Jonathan Hill, Lord Jonathan Hill, is responsible as commissioner. So I think that in the Commission the vacuum was immediately filled, and we understand from the government that there is no willingness, no will to appoint a new commissioner. I understand that the current government has left it also to the future government that might emerge towards the end of the year, and just it will be up to them to do. I think any portfolio is I think good for any commissioner who is knowledgeable, who is willing to work, who also loves Europe, and so we don't have anything specific. But Mr. Hill was in his place, and I think we also, I think, you might remember that for long, at least 2 or 3 British commissioners were in charge, 3, of international trade, because that when UK joined the European community at that time, they have been champion of not only of developing trade and openness of the European Union, but also of global liberalisation. So that was like their specificity, and that's something that we really owe to UK as European integration mostly, I think, not only single market but also this. So you can expect from the Brits to be maybe better in some areas than others, but I trust that there's no need now to I think there's no need now to decide on those issues. And on those xenophobic events, well, that's worrying, that's unfortunate. That's not only in UK that we have this xenophobia and radicalisation and lack of appetite for living in communities which are characterised by strong diversity. But it is difficult to understand, because I think, especially in local communities, but not only in global statistics, you can see it also, that all those migrants, as the UK people in UK say, or all those free-moving labour force coming from other member states to UK has largely contributed to growth for years now in UK. And you can have studies from London College, University College London, on the contribution of the people from other member states to UK in terms of growth, and they all show that those people from Poland, Portugal, Romania, they have paid through taxes to Europe, to British Treasury, much more than they got through social benefits from the Treasury. So that also shows that it's probably highly unjustified and very requires condemnation, I think, but unfortunately it's not only the British problem. That was an opportunity that gave those people who think like that just to use it and to express their views, but it is very unfortunate, and I hope that this type of behaviour will not be in EU something that we will see more often. That's one of the problems we have. We have to talk to people to understand that we are condemned to live in a differentiated world when it comes to the population.
Hi, Jean Cohn from the French Bulletin Quotidien. The Parliament will vote tomorrow a resolution on the outcome of the vote. Do you know at which point are the negotiations on the resolution now? Here. So on tomorrow's resolution, do you know at which point are the negotiations on the text?
You know, what I know is that today, this afternoon, there are meetings of political groups, that we have a deadline for amendments till 6. And then in the morning we have at 10 the plenary, where we will have the leaders of our political groups speaking. And I think by that time the resolution will have to be on the table. So I hope that tonight the resolution, the final version of the resolution will be finalized. And the resolution, as you can imagine, will be on how much we need to finalize this process and how much we need reforms. That's my hope, and then this will remain in the resolution till the last moment.
follow-up.
If I can just follow up, do you think the resolution will clearly ask the UK to trigger the Article 50 mechanism as fast as possible? Because I think all the groups in the Parliament said that they wanted fast triggering.
You know, we all, both in the European Council, not to mention the Commission, but also we in European Parliament, we know very well that to notify the European Council on the request to leave the, or to invoke the Article 50 on the basis of the results of the negotiation, that this is up to the UK, to the government, or whatever is the constitutional procedure, because there are different sort of speculations coming from the island on this, but this is completely out of our capacity to and political will to influence. I think all we can do is to express clearly that we expect this, but we cannot force, we cannot do anything to get this notification done. And without this notification, we cannot trigger the Article 50. That's also quite rather clear on the basis of the existing law. And as I was saying before, we believe that the sooner it happens, the better from all possible points of views. But we cannot do it for UK.
Okay, and with that, I would like to thank Ms. Hübner for being here today and all of you for coming, and a special thanks for the interpreters. Have a nice afternoon.